Today, we are very privileged to welcome Taryn Crosby to the Tales of Tic Podcast. Taryn, very welcome to the podcast today. It's a privilege to have you.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure for sure.
Absolutely. So to give you a little introduction to everyone, so Taryn's a prominent figure in the environmental tic sector, although she is probably doesn't like me to say that, but she is. Yeah, she has 20 years of experience leading high growth sales organizations in the laboratory service industry, and she has a lot of insight to bring to the podcast today. So yeah, Taryn, I said privilege again. I can't wait to hear your thoughts, and I know everyone else does as well.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this conversation for sure.
Absolutely. So maybe to kickstart, Taryn, I know you had quite a unique entry into the sector in terms of timing. So I mean, could you maybe kick us off by explaining how you stumbled into the TIC sector, I guess?
For sure. So my career up before I got into the environmental industry was with the Red Cross, and I was working in a blood lab. My first day was September 10th, 2001, as I age myself here. But my second day was 9/11. And crisis management, it was an amazing time of my life and career, but nonprofit living in New York City was a struggle. And during that time, I had got to meet a lot of the first responders who, worked on the pile and that were getting sick. Also, my dad's a construction worker. He worked at oil refineries, things like that. And I'd seen a lot of his friends get ill with different types of cancers. And so in 2008, when a recruiter called me and said, would you be interested in a job at Test America? And I looked into the company, I just felt like this is the perfect place for me to be. Of course, it was right before the financial crisis, so that made it very interesting. But what's interesting about the environmental market is that a lot of times when the economy goes down, more government money goes into environmental. So it ended up working out to my advantage there, and that started this amazing career in this really interesting and unique industry.
Absolutely. I mean, I couldn't think of a worse timing possible. You've got 9/11, then you've got the financial crisis. You're right. There's a supply and demand. When the economy takes a downturn, it normally helps for environmental, but even still, not a great time for uncertainty, is it?
For sure. Somehow I survived.
You did well. You did very well. So it's a testament to yourself. So yeah, a great 20, 25 years. I mean, I said you've achieved a lot. If we take it back to, I suppose, day one in TIC, you started yourself in a business which, was well known, but maybe the Northeast territory was essentially started from scratch. So I imagine, you wearing a lot of hats that if we look at, most businesses right now, typical salesperson wouldn't have to do. I mean, I know the story, but if you wouldn't mind maybe just, giving an insight into what that was like and maybe even how further down the line that shaped your leadership in the sector in terms of sales.
For sure. So, like you said, I started right at the start of the financial crisis. So, Test America at the time was looking to move into new markets. Their bread and butter accounts right around their laboratory in Edison in New Jersey. The amount of work just wasn't coming in. And so they decided that they wanted to start looking at New York City and expanding their market. So that was what I was tasked with. We opened up the very first facility there in New York City, and a team of one, in the very beginning, picking up samples. They added a service center manager not so long later, but it was still boots on the ground. It was just two of us, and it was an amazing experience. It felt like it was my own business. It was my first taste of being sort of an entrepreneur because I got out of it what I put in. So that meant sometimes picking up samples on a Saturday, picking up samples in the Bronx, dropping off equipment. You had to be everything to everybody because of the small amount of infrastructure. Now, that's not the case today. That was on day one. But we were able to build it, add couriers, we had field techs and additional salespeople. So it became quite an operation. But those early days, when it felt like a startup, were really very special and fun for me.
Yeah, but it's a catch-22 because you were learning so much. As I said, it's almost like your own business, your own baby that you're nurturing. But then again, you must have been exhausted doing all of that, the currying, driving on top of your normal sales role as well. That's a lot to take on.
Oh, yeah. But it was, like I said, I was younger then, so I had more energy. And it was really, it was the best opportunity to learn.
No, of course, of course. I said not many people have that opportunity of it starting their own lab. I know people I've spoken with the past, or even yourself, I said on the sales side and being, early in that journey is great. I think actually touching on that, I mean, what I find interesting about your background, Taryn, is that, you've been part of, two large organizations, but weren't necessarily part of these organizations when they were either, in a specific territory were massive or just in total. I mean, if we look at yourself leading a sales team, correct me if my numbers are wrong, I think you grew from 7 to 50. I imagine if we look at a culture and, leading a team of 7 across North America, that underdog mentality, then becoming, more of a household name, 50 people, everyone in Tic knows you. I mean, was there a big, maybe shift up internally from the mindset that people had, being pack leaders to now, I don't say you can rely on inbound, but a lot of people, maybe with a poorer mentality, would just think work's going to come to me. I don't have to work as hard. But I imagine that may have been different with you.
Yeah, I think that there isn't a lab in the Tic space that doesn't feel like the underdog. I mean, I really believe that every laboratory, they're not only competing against the big laboratories that everybody knows their name, they're competing against these mom and pop shops that have been with the clients since they started. There's friendships. Everybody feels like the underdog. And even if you're the biggest lab, you're still fighting against private equity or, the market conditions. And so for sure with me, with my most recent stint, I would have to say that even though these labs are so big, and if you're familiar with the Tic market, the clients don't always know who you are. They really don't. A lot of the fields people that the laboratories deal with are brand new, right out of college. I mean, you don't turn on your, podcast and hear an advertisement for Pace Analytical or Eurofins or SGS or any of them. It's kind of like a niche industry. And so that you're always selling yourself. You're always doing brand recognition because you might have a lab in New Jersey, but 2 states over in Pennsylvania, they might not be familiar with you. And that's true of all of the big labs. There's just always, you're always having to sell yourself. You always have a chip on your shoulder. And I think at least for me in my career, that's been a huge benefit. I think, being number 2 or 3 is the best place to be because you always have something to shoot for. And if you are number 1, you better perform like you're number 2.
Yeah, well, absolutely. It's good to have that. It's funny you mentioned that as well. I think I laugh around all the time about the Tic sector. It's probably the largest sector in the world that no one's ever heard of. Yeah. I mean, if you go into an elevator or anywhere, you'll probably see a Tic firm that's done work on it. But people you gloss over it in everyday life. But you're right, it is everywhere. It is a necessity, and some of these companies are massive, multi-billion-dollar. But it's great that you still have that mentality. Do you think that stems from the top? So by the time that people come, out of college into these large organizations, they're seeing, leaders that are, they don't necessarily consider themselves the best, or they have the mindset, that we still have a point to prove. Is that maybe trickled down, do you think, through the ranks?
I think it's sort of dual. I think that this is a infant industry. I mean, it started in the 80s. I think that the same people that once just had a GC in their garage and that's how they got started are now running these companies. So I think there's nobody feels like that there's a humility to this industry. Nobody feels like they're the Harvard graduate MBA most of these guys are scientists, and I think that keeps everybody sort of humble. I also think that nobody's figured it out yet. I mean, I would have thought when I started in this industry in 2008, Test America was bigger than all the other labs combined. And in any other industry, that would have meant you owned the market, like 80-90% market share. But again, there's all these small local players. And, to this day, no laboratory has figured out how to take home the whole pot of chips at the end of the poker game. We're all still just, slugging it out day to day. And I think that the leader or the largest laboratory, I think it keeps changing. I think one year we'll see someone else on top, and the next year we'll see someone else. So it makes it for a great set of rivalries.
Well, it does, as you said, it makes it that number two always chasing number one. If it always flips, I mean, it competes. And it's probably nicer than when you look at other sectors like Coca-Cola and McDonald's, where they monopolize everything. Don't really have that in tech. There's a few players that are maybe, a lot larger than the rest, maybe like a tier one, but as I said, they change it, who's actually top of that pack. So it's a good point. It actually leads on to something I was really curious to ask. So, I mean, if we look at when you started, around that financial crisis, around 9/11, the sector's changed massively. As you said, a lot of scientists with, GC in their garages. And then, if we look now, you've got some much larger facilities that they're still run by scientists. But, I mean, if we look back to the 80s, I mean, PFAS testing in its infancy right now, it's massive. In the next 5 to 10 years, we'll see the market shift again. I mean, where do you, I suppose, see the market heading? Do you think it's going to be a shift from maybe data in the science onto automation, AI, or do you think maybe we'll even shift elsewhere?
I think there's a massive shift. So you're right. When I first started, it was the financial crisis, and really the shift there was, I mean, we weren't that far out from 9/11. So it was really all about, what do you do in the case of emergency? What do you do in the case of, how we were selling lab services was, is your lab financially stable enough to survive? If there was a terrorist attack in Houston, do they have another laboratory that they can shift everything to in another area? It was a completely different mindset. And now what you're seeing is a lot of, mergers and acquisitions. The technology is so much more advanced. I think at this point, we are seeing sort of like that game of Pac-Man, where the bigger guys are eating up the smaller ones. And I think that the landscape has changed. I think there's been a lot of focus on the science, on PFAS. That's a really difficult set of analysis. It's new. It's, ever changing. But I think it will settle down, and I think we'll actually see a shift towards customer service. I really believe that everybody's working on the science, and we've all forgotten about the client. And I think in the future, we're going to see a shift to these, whether the industry is using AI and automation, which only makes sense because that's where the world is going. I think the trick will be figuring out how to give that soft touch to the customer and make it feel like that local laboratory that they've loved their whole career.
Absolutely. It's a great point. At the end of the day, what you're looking at is, I mean, how can you provide the best customer service? As you said, PFAS testing, it's seen as a specialty service now, but with science evolving realistically, I spoke to someone, I think it was yesterday or the day before, he said it probably won't be a specialty service in a few years, it'll be standard. So you're right, the shift goes to customer service, and what customers look for is it price, is it, on-time delivery, it's having that partner they can trust. So, I mean, the shift onto that isn't going to be a bad thing at all. At the end of the day, it's I don't think wholesome's the right word, but it's more ethical, I guess. What I mean? You're doing the best for your client, which is great. I think the M&A side's an interesting piece you touch on as well. It's massive in the sector right now. You've got the large tech companies involved. You've got European giants coming across to the sector as well, especially in Enviro. And then you've got private equity. So I'd be keen to see how that works the next 5-10 years. If someone does manage to monopolize, PE move out, if other companies come in, who knows? I think it'll be exciting regardless.
Definitely.
Yeah. One thing that's interesting, I think, about the next few years as well, is I actually had a podcast recently with a guy called Dan Christensen, who heads up industrial hygiene lab service sales for Bureau Veritas. And he talked about, and I think it's similar for environmental, maybe you can comment, that there's almost, an aging population and there's a little bit of a changing of the guard that we're seeing. So it'd be intriguing, I suppose, to see that, with these older generations coming into maybe more of a mentor, and if they're able to preserve their knowledge, because ultimately, all the services we're doing is to protect society. It's, water quality, air quality, it benefits everyone. So harboring secrets, is it going to benefit anyone? I mean, what are your thoughts on that topic? The changing of the guard, older generation, or even, any advice for younger individuals maybe coming into the TIC or just wider environmental scene?
This is such a great question. So I was recently at a talk, I think environmental analysis, and they were saying how the industry is in 5 years, 60% of the industry is going to be retired or something in that range. And I had a mentor, Pat McIsaac, who once told me, this isn't just a job, it's a mission. And so you have to mentor, you have to pass on everything to the next generation of people who are going to inherit this industry. And I think it's a really exciting time because we are seeing the changing of the guard. And while, it's come so far from the 1980s, the next group of individuals who take over this industry, I mean, it's the tech generation, right? They're going to have a new set of ideas, and I'm really excited to see where this industry goes. But I will say to the legacy, sort of the veterans, the people that have been in this for a while, it is a mission. Like, the environment is so important, and we can't just do our job and then go off into the sunset. We have to pass on all of this institutional knowledge. And it's more than just a succession plan. It is mentoring and making sure that someone knows that we don't leave with our secrets. Society and the environment, we can't afford to do that, for sure.
Well, exactly. Especially if we look at the bigger picture. I mean, ultimately, I mentioned about air quality, water testing. You're leaving the environment and you're leaving the earth to your kids, your grandkids, etc. So, I mean, you want the best quality of life for them. Exactly. So that mentoring, it passes the guard down to, I said, the tech people, which leads back to automation, etc., and improving that side. But ultimately, we want to create the best solutions to the issues we've got right now in the sector. So, yeah, if we're preserving that knowledge, I said, we're in good hands. So hopefully you can help lead that. People above you can lead that, and your mentors, Taryn. So I think we're in good hands for sure. But no, listen, it's actually a great note to finish on. So I appreciate your comments so much. Some great ideas in there. And as I said, really appreciate everything you've had to say, all your insights. And it's been an absolute pleasure, Taryn.
Oh, Anton as well. I'm really impressed by how much you know about the TIC space. It says a lot about you and what you do.
No, thank you. It's great to hear that. So, it's an absolute privilege. I said, hopefully it was great for everyone, tuning in to listen as well. I'll tag Taryn in this as well, so you can have a look at her career and the great things she's doing. But absolutely. Thank you so much, Taryn. I said, have a great day, and it was an absolute pleasure.
You too. Thanks, Anton.
Thank you. Bye-bye.